All right, welcome to this explainer on the dark psychology of emotional addiction. Tonight, we're exploring a deeply personal, frankly, pretty painful topic. We're talking about the reality of one-sided relationships and those underlying dynamics that can just absolutely destroy your self-esteem. Now, I know it's a heavy subject, but trust me, understanding exactly how this works is the very first step to getting your life back. So, I have a question for you. Why are you still awake at 2 a.m.? Just picture this scenario. Or, honestly, maybe you're literally living it right now. The lights in your room are off. There's this strange, heavy silence all around you. You're lying in bed, exhausted, but sleep is just nowhere to be found. Instead, your eyes keep darting over to the glowing screen of your phone. You're waiting, thinking maybe they'll send a text, maybe they'll actually call, maybe they'll finally just say, "I miss you." But the screen, it remains completely blank, entirely silent, much like your importance in their life has become. And yet, you just keep waiting because you genuinely believe you love them.
Okay, let's dive into this because here is a hard truth. It's gonna sting a little to hear, but grasping this concept is absolutely crucial to escaping what is essentially the biggest mental prison of your entire life. That person keeping you awake, the one you're endlessly waiting for, they might not actually love you at all. Instead, they are intentionally keeping you hooked. They're cultivating an addiction.
To figure out how they pull this off, we have to talk about intermittent reinforcement. This is, without a doubt, one of the most dangerous tactics in dark psychology. It's this twisted psychological game where you're never fully abandoned, right? But you're also never fully loved. You are intentionally kept suspended right in the middle, just dangling there, between hope and despair, between genuine love and cold neglect, between the reality of the situation and this dream you're holding on to. To really wrap our heads around how intermittent reinforcement plays out in real life, let me share a story from our source material. It's about a guy named Arif and a woman named Marin. Now, Arif was just a normal, quiet, super passionate guy. He's the kind of person who, when he loves someone, he gives absolutely everything he has, no holding back. So when Marin entered his life, she very quickly became the center of his entire world. Let's move to and see how this builds over time. At the 1-month mark, man, everything was like a fairy tale. They'd talk all night long, send countless messages back and forth, dream about the future together. Marin made Arif feel like he was literally the most important person on the planet. She promised she'd never leave, and RF, he believed her completely. But then, by month 3, the silence started creeping in. Marin's replies started taking hours instead of minutes. Phone calls were abruptly cut short. All that warmth suddenly turned into this cold, distant attitude. Fast forward to month 6, and RF was barely surviving on emotional breadcrumbs. He kept telling himself, well, maybe she's just busy or going through a hard time. So he tried even harder to love her. But the harder he pushed, the further away she pulled. Arif was completely trapped in this vicious cycle. You know how it goes. It starts with the neglect. Then you wait. Then comes that immense sinking pain. Eventually, Arif hit his breaking point. He couldn't take it anymore and decided he had to save himself. He cut contact, stopped messaging, really tried to heal. But right at that exact moment, boom, step 4 happens, sudden love. Marin reappeared out of nowhere, long texts bringing up sweet old memories, asking if he was mad at her. And RF just melted. He thought, wow, my doubts were all wrong. She really does love me. But within days, they were right back to step 1. Neglect, wait, pain, sudden love, repeat. Just an endless, continuous loop. So, the crucial point is this. RF wasn't actually in a relationship anymore. He wasn't in love. He was entirely trapped in an emotional loop. He had literally become addicted. And the psychology behind this is absolutely fascinating, but also pretty terrifying. See, human beings are actually way more addicted to irregular, unpredictable rewards than we are to regular, consistent ones. And that brings us to a really fascinating, somewhat surprising number: 10. Think of a gambler sitting at a slot machine. If that gambler knows for a fact they'll only win once out of every 10 pulls, they don't just walk away. They keep pulling that lever. Why? Because the brain becomes neurochemically obsessed with the unpredictability of it all. Maybe the next pull is the winner. Maybe this time. The manipulator in your life is relying on that exact same dopamine hit to keep you sitting at their table. Which leads us to what is easily the most dangerous word in this entire dynamic: maybe. That single word, those are your chains. Maybe this time they'll actually change. Maybe this time they truly love me. Maybe things will finally go back to how they were in the beginning. The person controlling you understands those chains perfectly. That's exactly why they don't let you go completely, because then you'd be totally free. but they don't fully commit to you either, because then the game would be over. So they give you just enough affection, just a tiny scrap of attention, to keep that maybe alive and well in your head.
The absolute tragic result of this psychological trap is that it completely obliterates your self-respect. You end up staring at the ceiling in the dark, asking, is there something wrong with me? Am I just not good enough? If I only tried a little harder, could I keep their attention? It is a devastatingly lonely place to be, feeling like your entire worth as a human being is dictated by someone else's unpredictable moods.
But listen to me, here is what you really need to remember tonight. The problem is not you. You are perfectly fine. The problem is that you are dealing with a total illusion of love. You're dealing with someone who acts like they love you but constantly offers empty words of commitment, words that literally have zero value. They're crafting this illusion of care, but there's no genuine sincerity behind any of it. It's just a performance, and it's designed specifically to keep you on the hook. In our source story, RF eventually hit what we're going to call the mirror moment. One day, after a really long time of just brutal suffering, he stood in front of a mirror and actually looked at himself. And he realized something profound. The person he was so desperately trying to save had never done a single thing to save him. The person he stayed awake crying over didn't care at all about his tears. He was sacrificing his entire life, his happiness, his dignity, for someone who gave absolutely zero thought to his self-respect. And that was the exact moment he decided he was done begging. And this brilliantly illustrates a core difference we absolutely have to establish today, separating true love from emotional addiction. Because, guys, they are worlds apart. True love empowers you. Addiction completely weakens you. True love makes you independent and free. Addiction makes you a prisoner. True love teaches you your absolute worth, while addiction makes you forget your worth entirely. Let's break that down just a little bit further by looking at what each of these actually provides. True love gives you security, peace of mind, and deep, unwavering respect. It doesn't purposefully starve you of affection. It doesn't mentally torture you under the completely bogus guise of testing your loyalty. Emotional addiction, on the flip side, gives you nothing but uncertainty, instability, and disrespect. If someone is keeping you dangling for months or years, only showing you these tiny flashes of affection, that is not love. That is an addiction. So, how do we stop this? How do you actually get your life back? The mindset shift has to happen right now, today. First, you have to stop begging for love. Second, you need to immediately stop tying your personal, daily happiness to their completely unpredictable moods. And third, you must absolutely refuse to be your manipulator's emotional toy. You have to actively decide that you are no longer going to let your life be destroyed by the intoxicating high of their irregular affection. Look, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, please remember this. You are worth so much more than a small dose of fake affection. The very second you truly realize your own immense value, those chains just break. When you know what you are worth, no manipulator, no matter how skilled they are in dark psychology, will ever be able to keep you locked in an emotional prison again. They lose literally all their power the moment you finally realize your own. As we wrap up here, I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful realization drawn straight from the source material. Some people come into your life to teach you a lesson, not to give you love. They aren't there to win your heart. They're there to open your eyes. Because sometimes the biggest victory in your life isn't finally winning that person over. Sometimes the ultimate victory is just walking away from the person who was using you. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the challenge it presents. Will you break the cycle tonight? Are you going to keep being the beggar for someone else's fake illusion? Or are you finally going to choose your own freedom? Staring at that phone at 2 a.m. is never going to change them. But putting it down, turning off the screen, and finally getting some sleep for yourself, that changes everything. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Think really carefully about what you're going to choose tonight.